All right, Will,
So,
we are live. We are ready. I appreciate you so much for being able to join me on such a beautiful day. We got to get the shoes off. We've talked about this in every episode. I don't know if you remember Blame the Meg from Frag 18. She gave me a stern warning about shoes on the bed, so I've got to make sure to get those off every single time. But we are live for Laying It Down with Big D, and today I'm joined by Will English the Fourth. Will, how are you feeling today?
feeling fantastic. It's a good Wednesday afternoon in Chicago. It is snowing today, so I had to deal with that earlier this this morning. So decompressing from that, but otherwise okay. I'm good.
I like that. Well, and by all means, your background definitely showcases a very different scenario for sure for where you're at compared to the snow. Uh,
Well, where I would prefer to be at this point in time is the better statement. But yes,
well, okay. I want to jump right into this. You and I got to work together at Frag 18 down in Kansas City. You were the producer, the main producer for the B stream, correct?
that's correct.
And God, I loved working with you, dude. Like it was just a treat to have a person that I always love getting to work with gamers in their middle age. I don't know if you're in your middle age, but like I'm in my middle age, and I just appreciate people that have been around video games for a long time. I'm let's ask the first question here because I these all come off the cuff. By the way, I do not
Oh,
lay out any interview questions beforehand. Usually, what
so your
got
name's not Barbara Walters?
no. uh no, I what got you involved in production with video games in the first place? Because I know you're not Counter-Strike specific, right?
Right. It's actually kind of a very long and convoluted story, so I'll try to give you the 60-second version. One is like my background has always been in events. I tell people that I've worked in events and hospitality for over 2 decades. I've been a DJ, I've been a bartender, I've been a server, I've been an audio guy. I used to run anime conventions with Anime Central and Otakon for over a decade. And then, ironically enough, I quit. I said, look, it was taking up too much of my time. I wanted to settle down and not not be working all the time, not be traveling all the time. And then there's a little tournament in Chicago. So I come from the what's considered the fighting game community. So and I didn't know this at the time, but one of my friends from college was one of the best Guilty Gear players in the world. I didn't know this. He's just been a guy to me. I've been to his wedding. I know his wife and his kids and everything. So he asked me to help out with this tournament called Frosty Faustings, which is here in Chicago. Little did I know, I'd raise my hand and say, "Hey, yeah, I'll help out with this. No big deal." Just like we used to do in college. We used to run video game tournaments in college. Not a big deal. But I saw people were able to do this production thing, this Twitch thing. Twitch started becoming a thing. Evo, The Legend of Daigo Mahara, the whole nine yards, and people were doing these production with a webcam and a computer. And in my head, I'm like, I've worked in broadcast production before. I've been on radio. I've been in radio stations. I've been a tech nerd. I'm like, how are you guys doing this with just very simple equipment? And so I asked to become a streamer at the next Frosty Faustings that I worked at. So I did that, learned all the lessons and stuff like that. Traveled for a little bit, and then as time went on, it's gotten involved in much more stuff. Now, there's also kind of a longer story as to like during the pandemic, like everybody had to have a hobby. I bought all this, I invested in all this wonderful production equipment, and I decided to do something else. And so it kind of led me into the FPS side of things. But like I get gruff from like both sides of the coin. Like when I go to do fighting game shows, people will tell me it's not FPS. Will it's not this other game, and I'm like it's okay. I'm still part of this community. I don't care what the game is. Like I like the production aspect of it, so I've stuck with it.
Well, yeah, and you've definitely got a knack for it. The like I said, I really enjoyed getting to work with you on the B stream for Frag 18 because You've just got a good head about you. You've got a calmness that makes everything a lot easier as a talent to be able to just focus on the work. So what fighting game specifically do you come from? Like, I know the fighting game community is kind of like all fighting games kind of tie into each other, but like, what's your favorite, or like, what's the one that born you out of this?
So when I started, ironically enough, I spent. So you talk about gaming into middle age. Okay, yeah, I'm 44 years old. I started my gaming career at arcades, bowling alleys, that kind of stuff. Like, I joke with my friends now that if you told me this is what I would be doing at this age, I would be telling you're joking with me, right? And like, traveling and doing all that stuff. But either way, my first job working as a producer was working on the what was considered the mystery game tournament, which was a random assortment of collection of video games and all sorts of weird. Like, it's kind of its own thing. If you never experienced it before, you kind of need to play it. But basically, it's been like this Chicago-born. They pick games out of everywhere, and like all this is just this oddball collection of games that they have, and so. And then eventually I also picked up what was considered retro games. And so I invested heavily into arcade hardware. And so now, kind of like what I like, gun to my head. This is what I would do. Is like I love hanging out with my friends Friday nights at this place called Logan Arcade, which is in Chicago. We do streams there once a month. I tend to be involved in that some way somehow, and so Third Strike and Super Turbo and all those games. Like the newer stuff, I can kind of play, but like it's not really it requires time and effort, and like some of the muscle memory of playing in arcades is still exists for me when I play with my friends on Fridays. Outside of that, if someone else would look at my career, they would say I would come from the anime side of things, and so there's these obscure. So my friend, who his name was his handle was Elvin Shadow. He was the one of the top tier Guilty Gear players, and with an oddball character named Faust. But hence the name Frosty Faustings. But the problem is, like, he was playing all the gods in Japan, and he was like bottom ranked down over there. But then he would come over here, and no one had access to the game other than him, right? So like, people would come by and play, but that was an opportunity to play this rare game against somebody that was decently and good at it, as it were. So it was kind of like a gathering of, like, anime fighting game players. And we were kind of like the Sandlot, like if you build it, that would come kind of people. But now, access is everywhere. Now Guilty Gear, is cross-play. It's on modern platforms and people play. The new game just came out not too long after. But in my heart and soul, like where I enjoy the most is just being part of the retro scene and being part of the arcade scene. Which also, now that we're most of us are older and have like disposable income, now it's like people have private arcades and people are collecting boards. I have a couple of boards and stuff like that, and it's just like it amazes me what technology can do when you have enough money in your board, right? Kind of deal. Because like no one's worried about this old technology. No one's going to arcades like me. We're kind of like the last generation as far as I'm concerned. Like the youth is just like they don't care. But either way, it's like I always tell people, that playing Farmville and all that stuff on your phone. The reason why is because people like me, right? Because people like me there are in arcades right now. So, but regardless, it's part of the fun for me.
So you literally are born from that arcade scene that was so huge in the late 80s, early 90s. And
Oh yeah.
so let me ask you then, what has that, you talked about it a little bit about like being the last generation. What has that trajectory looked like from your perspective of moving from being in the arcades, being a very social function of gaming, as much as it was looked down upon, like, oh, just nerds go to the arcade, right? Like, as much as it was looked down upon, it was still a social function. What has the trajectory looked like from your perspective of moving from the arcade, being in person, to everything being online now?
Oh, I think there's a huge social aspect that's missing of it. What I find even more hilarious is that, like, people talk about all the time, how do we connect people, right? How do we build those social connections that were there previously? People had dinner with their family every night. People went to church, people went to Boy Scouts. There was all these social functions that were kind of built in and kind of an expectation of life. And now, online replaces it. You could go X amount of time and not speak to a single soul. But the pandemic kind of like exacerbated this fact, right? Like, people were going nuts. People were breaking the law just to go outside and connect with people, even though we
Right.
were telling everybody, no, it's dangerous to do so, right? Like, at great risk to their own personal health. But like, I think for me, it's like, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Like we there are people that are obviously online, and they're going to stay online, and they're going to, they're never going to leave, right? They're just going to play from Twitch gives them a social aspect of it, even though I think it's magnified slash maligned a little bit, right? Because, like, you're serving so many people, you're connecting with so many people, but what is that connection really, right? And people are making careers out of it, right? Like, people are making careers out of just, connecting with an audience, whatever that means to them. But for folks like myself, where I think the real spectacle, the real mover is when people gather and get together in person, right? A great example of this is, I built a tournament series for Overwatch. I was bored. I was during the pandemic, and I wanted to be part of that ecosystem, so I created my own tournament. Not knowing that I kind of like, I struck gold like kind of very early on, but we did 6 or 7 tournaments online, and we had 30 plus teams all over the world, blah 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 blah, right? And then, like, the second we did the second we did our first land in person, it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. People traveled not just to play in the tournament. I mean, the tournament was immaterial. They could have played from home. It was very, very easy to do so, right? It's very easy to say. No, they wanted to meet their friends in person. So, like, it was more of a pride moment for me, that, like, I was connecting people in real life. People had only played with each other online and never seen each other in person, and all of a sudden, like, here's an opportunity for folks to stop by, right? And so I think that that's still, like, no matter what anyone says about, like, online gaming communities and toxicity and stuff like that, it's just, I think the real value is the connection that you see in person, whether it's in a small version, whether it's, Discord community group and stuff like that. Once they meet in person, that's kind of where the magic happens. And there are a lot of places that are scrambling to kind of make those connections and make and to a certain extent capitalize off of that. No one's figured it out yet to a consistent manner. Like, kind of like how we have, sports teams and stadiums and all this other stuff. If somebody could put lightning in a bottle and connect all these folks, and, get them to come out and spend money in other ways, I'm sure that it would be amazing. But for right now, Twitch is what we have, Discord is what we have. But just like, I still think that connection is the human connection is still brings us all together. And so, like, I see no difference than, like, going to Fragadelphia, and what I used to do in the arcades. It was fun. It was a fun social evening with your friends, and that's what it's all about.
Seriously, like, this is something that I keep touching on in every episode that I do right now, is how important, like, right now, something that has never been explored in human history is that parasocial relationship that occurs on Twitch, right? Like, I get to see your face, I get to see you doing stuff, but you only see me typing to you, right? So it's a very strange relationship. And yeah, I've put 13,000 hours into Counter-Strike over the last 11 years. Frag 18 was the first time that I got to go to a LAN, and I was like, oh my God, this is what it's
Wow.
about. Yeah, like, it is about connecting face to face, and being able, like you said, you had those interactions back in the arcade back in the day. Um, More lands need to occur. What do you think needs to change? Because we've all gotten so comfortable sitting in our own homes, sitting in our house, playing online video games. What do you think needs to change for us to get more back to that face to face relationship and have more lands? Is it just more lands? Is it? But give it a rip. I'm not going to give you options here.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me personally, we're kind of in a weird state of play right now, right? Because of how, like, one of the advantages of throwing a LAN was that you didn't have access to high speed internet. You didn't have access to, high end computer equipment, right? The folks that were coming to LANs, like, either had the disposable income or were somehow connected to friends and family. Now, when I say LAN party in my brain, right, I'm thinking like the old CRT monitors, the old, like tower PCs and
The
stuff like
guy
that.
duct taped to the ceiling.
Yes, the most iconic picture in LAN party history, right? But just like for me, that meant something. That was an investment. Like one of the rituals was making your own Ethernet cable. But the thing about it is like now when I say LAN to people, right, their expectation is that everything's already set up for them. It's just like them playing at home, right? Like they're gonna come in, the PC's already set up, the monitor's already set up, and that's a significant investment. That is not something where like I can buy 25 PlayStations and let it rip. And it's kind of how, if you talk about guerrilla marketing in certain aspects, that's why the fighting game community survives, right? I can bring in a console, a monitor, and I'm ready to go, right? Everybody else just brings their arcade sticks and you're ready to play. And some people play on pads, blasphemy, right? But for PC gaming and for the stuff that we do, right, it's a little bit more involved. And some places have been able to make that investment one way or another, either by capitalizing on someone else's failure or, finding some kind of deal in the back of some warehouse. I mean, we've thrown lands in like the back of like car garages and like car repair shops and barbershops and warehouses and stuff like that. We didn't care as long as we had the space. But again, a lot of things have to go right for these events now, and it's kind of hard to put that together. Now, I salute the folks that are trying, right? I salute the folks like like Steve at Fragadelphia, myself included. Like it's like we've had these LAN centers pop up, and they're supposed to be again like trying to replicate and bottle that social aspect. And a lot of the LAN centers fail because again, we have access to high speed internet at home, and odds are, even if you don't have a graphics card in your PC, you can play a lot of the online games, without leaving your house. So like, why make that investment in time and energy? So we have to support the LAN centers that do exist. There are some PC vendors that are starting to come down on their prices, but just like I just think it requires. I don't know what the innovation and the answer is going to end up being. Like what we're seeing now also is that like multiple companies have publishers have tried to make because the point of this is like publisher support, but you see the publisher investment in the stuff like what's the most successful esports event as far as money, time, and engagement is the international for Dota, right? But the
Right.
reason why is like that they have the compendium, which is part of the game. It's a celebration of the community. It's a 2 3 week long event, the whole 9 yards. But Valve supports it, right? And so one of the direction that things were going initially were like, hey, the publishers want all the money for themselves, like Bobby Kotick and the Overwatch League, for example. It was kind of like example of like how they were trying to capitalize. They were just trying to just come off the top and say, look, we're going to make this like the NBA. Everybody's just going to invest or whatever. And it blew up. Why? Right? Because not everybody that's part of the ecosystem wants to make that level of investment. They talk about esports fans, look, if you're a fan of a sports team or something along those lines, you'll spend $10 to $15 a year plus, right? Whether it's memorabilia, going to a game, buying some popcorn, but the average esports fan spends like $5, right? Because they're so used to getting the content for free.
Right.
So I guess to answer your question, it's like I always encourage to try to like definitely want to make more lands, but as I say that, I understand the difficulty in producing that. I also think too that I think we need to get back to that community building aspect of it, right? Like I think a lot of these companies, just for survival's sake, just because of the economy and how gaming works at this point in time, is like you either hit really big and you make multi-million-dollar on your game, or you're done, right? You're out, right? The smaller FPS titles or whatever innovation would be in that space doesn't really exist anymore, right? Like you have Call of Duty, you have I mean, Overwatch came out of nowhere, right? But like you have Counter-Strike still remains. Counter-Strike still has the largest audience and the largest engagement. And then who runs those tournaments? It's going to be Blast. It's going to be ESL and DreamHack, and they got enough pockets to weather whatever storm, right? They service thousands of people. For people like me, like I say me and Steve, but just like for people like TOs like me and Steve, right? We have to get in where we fit in. We have to make deals. We have to we have to go in the middle of Kansas City in a place that I never even dreamed I would be at a certain point, right? And so like it would be nice if and I think there's a small contingent of folks like they're like for example, there's an event that we're doing with DuPage County here in Illinois, where it's a tourism bureau, right? And one of their incentives to helping us putting an event together is that it brings people to the county, right? It brings people in to spend money at the hotels and hotel nights, and then local restaurants and stuff like that. There's an economic impact that they're concerned about. It was the same thing when I was working with anime conventions. It's like, they're encouraging this, and they're providing whatever deals and breaks are, because, or I mean, especially for Frosty Faustings, if you can imagine the dead of winter in Illinois. Like, who's going to visit in January in Illinois? Well, 25,000 people come by for Frosty Faustings. I mean, I don't know what the exact number is, but like, anybody that hosts their event is like, wait, that's something that's money we would never have seen without this kind of community and this kind of thing. So I think that that's possible, and I think there's synergy somewhere, and I think someone is working on it and trying to figure it out, and it can't be this large scale all or nothing thing, and it can't be something where like it doesn't work and the player experience just sucks. And so, God bless the folks that dare and try, because again, I think if someone figures it out, I think if someone capitalizes on it, it's going to be a great thing, and it's going to revitalize. We talk about grassroots esports as well, like, it's the same drill. It's just like we need people to kind of like take the risk and take the leap, and however difficult it is, however whatever hurdles they run into, still facilitate that, because I think the community is important. And for me, that's kind of like my ethos, is that like, I'm of service to the community. I wouldn't exist without them, right? Kind of deal. Like I can do whatever the heck I want to, right? I don't have to do this, right? Like I do this because I want to, and I do this because I like being in service community, and it's rewarding to put it together. But not everybody has that incentive, right? Everybody, people want to make money. I don't blame you, right?
Right.
I don't blame you at all. So it's a combination of things, but I think like I do see tendrils of it, because people see the large events, people see the engagement and the spectacle it is elsewhere in the world. Like, we don't have that kind of engagement here in North America that is seen all over the world, including in Europe. And you think how interconnected we are versus like Europe and South Korea and all the wonderful stuff, right? Like, everybody wants the South Korea magic. Everybody wants, the whatever's going on in South Korea, regardless of the esport, they want that here in North America. And no one's figured it out yet. But once they figure it out, like I said, it's gonna be huge. And I may live long enough to see it, but we'll see how it goes.
You're gonna live long enough to see it. I think that specifically what you were talking about there, how much of the social connection happened, and then online made us all kind of disconnect from each other. We're starting to see, like you mentioned, land centers being the part of the puzzle that host a lot of these things, that are daring to try to get out there and contribute to this space and make it a more social aspect. I remember in the early 2000s, like, land centers were kind of a thing in North America,
Oh yeah.
and then they immediately like they immediately went out of business. Nothing was done. But here we are 20 years later, and we're starting to see the resurgence of those kinds of things because of exactly what we're talking about, where there is an understanding that the social aspect of gaming and being face to face with each other is so important. I'm curious to know, you mentioned EU and you mentioned South Korea. Do you think this is a specific North American problem? Like do lands not exist as much in the North American space? And from your perspective of like being in multiple esports as well, do all games face this problem with the North American region being kind of an underdeveloped region, or is
Again,
is it a
I
Counter-Strike
don't think
specific thing?
I think like, again, it's not one specific thing. It is a combination of things. Like, if you imagine where kind of a lot of we owe a lot of our careers to is StarCraft in South Korea, right? No
Yes.
one ever thought, not even Blizzard thought, right? Like, if you go back, there was like a documentary where Blizzard was like, who would come to a concert venue to see people playing in a video game, right?
Right.
So we all of our relative careers, in one form or another, to South Korea experimenting with it. But you have to understand also too that like there's a culture aspect for South Korea. I mean, like I make this other joke. Like you make me bring all these other jokes that I don't like talk about. But like this is the other joke I make is like, you know, if I'm a young guy and I want to impress girls in high school, you know, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna play League of Legends and try to beat Faker, you know, 1v1, or am I gonna go play football? And I may get injured in football, and I may, you know, I may lose years of my life, and I might have like nagging injuries for the rest of my life. But that is more appealing. What do we value as far as a society for young men and to a certain extent young women? Sports, football, basketball, X, Y, and
Competition.
Z. That yeah, you know, this is the path to riches. This is the path to stardom, as it were, right? But if you look at South Korea, listen, Faker. Let me say something about Faker, right? Like no one cares about League of Legends, right? No one cares about League of Legends all over the world except for the one player that has done it so well that he is a international icon, right? And also like so most players in South Korea face the thing that they have mandatory military service. This man went to the World Soul Games or something like that, and basically won his freedom. He played so well, his team, everybody on his team got an exemption, a rare exemption from South Korean military service to play because he played League of Legends so well, and he's so important to their country as a player. Do we think we're ever going to have that in North America? Probably not. The closest we've got to is maybe Sinatra and Overwatch League, but that was like artificial. And once we found out like some of the stuff, like he's nowhere to be found, right? So no one can name a player. And I was telling people this about Overwatch League. I was like, guys, look, until everybody knows a baseball player, people can name a baseball player whether they've played before or afterwards. And like you don't need to know stats, you don't need to know home runs, whatever. You know a player, you can pick a player to name. Until
Babe
my
Ruth.
grandmother cared. Yeah, yeah. It's like until my grandmother pulls me to the side and says, "Hey, you know, what about a super on the New York Excelsior?" It's never going to happen. Like, can you name a player other than Scump on a Call of Duty League team? No, you can't. And what's even funnier is that like the incentive for these players now is just to create their own brands. They don't even care about playing at this point. Playing is kind of like the icing on the cake. It's like once you get in, cool, build your own personal brand, and they got more views and more money rolling in than the actual publishers and the actual professionally produced streams, as it were. So you know, the thing is I do think that it's like it's like I said, it's a combination of things for the EU side of things as well. It's like again these legends. There's country pride. There's national pride in line for a lot of these teams because for some of them this was their only way out. Like this is their Super Bowl. This is their football. This is their thing in one way or another. Because if you're not going to play soccer or you're not going to play football like actual football in Europe, what are you going to do? You're in some like a lot of players, like especially like the Russian, Ukrainian teams and stuff like that. Like, what was their life outside of like video games, right? Like nothing. Like, there's this kid that was is a his name's Arslan Ash. Like he's Pakistani. Like he's showing pictures of where he could possibly play Tekken, which is an extremely small circumstance, and like visas was completely difficult. But he had one chance. He had one chance to come from where he came from to play at Evo, and he wins it all. But you got to understand, like for him, that was everything. For him, that was his only way out. And so, what I think for North America specifically is like the culture really doesn't value it, right? Even though they do, I would argue that they do.
We do.
But
We do.
but they don't value it in the way that other countries and other places do, and they don't support it and promote it the way other countries and other places do. Now, you can come here and ironically enough, for especially for League of Legends, for the longest time, it was kind of like the retirement home for old players, right? You get all the best players, they come over to North America. Why? Because they can make more money over here than they do on a B team somewhere else, right? And so that makes sense, right? Because like the American, the venture capitalist money, but that's another story for another day. The thing about it is I think it's mostly multifaceted. I think that the support is not there 100%. And I think again somebody's trying to figure it out because we make the games and we provide the infrastructure and we provide the model, right? Like the model for all these tournaments and these leagues and these structures come from us. They're not like somebody in some Russian basin figuring it out. It's like, no, we have modeled that for the world, and the world is taking advantage of it to provide the spectacles as necessary, right? So what I think what I think will eventually happen is like so someone's going to figure it out, and then like these things will be well attended and everything else. Like it's funny now because like now the the strategy seems to be now is just kind of like this a scarcity tactic, right? Where it's just like VCT like sells out every show that they do at the Riot Arena, right? Like I can't even get a ticket, and I know people that work there, right? Kind of deal. And it's
Right.
like but they're never going to make the arena bigger. They're never going to build a bigger arena. Why? Because like it's not worth the risk, right? It's just like they sell it out, they get to pan the crowd, and it's all full. Why change, right? And then like the Call of Duty League, they were like Call of Duty and Overwatch League were going to do weekly tournaments in different venues across the United States, right? It was supposed to be like this, go to a basketball game and go to an Overwatch League game, and like I was like, you got to be kidding me! An average Overwatch League match lasts 45 minutes. You're going to open the United Center to play an Overwatch match for 45 minutes. It's not happening. It's never going to happen, right? Kind of deal. But they were trying and to limit the success, and then the pandemic killed it. But like now it's just majors. It's just like now Overwatch it's 3 times a year. Now Call of Duty it's 4 times a year, an in-person event, right? And that works. Now they're able to sell bigger venues for that because of the scarcity tactic, but that's about it. There's never gonna I don't think there's gonna be anything like sustainable to the point where like we have like every weekend there's something in person, there's some kind of spectacle in person. But it's starting to get a little crowded, I will say. It's starting to get a little bit crowded in the space, but I don't think it's going to be I don't think North America is going to be the intended target. Like if they go everywhere else, like they're going to host tournaments everywhere else except here. And so again, once somebody figures it out, or somebody says, "Hey, we're going to provide the financial incentives for teams and players and organizations and publishers to do their thing here," we're just going to have to keep watching and see if something happens.
Yeah, I've been really sad about like I remember Overwatch splashing onto the scene back in 2015, 10 years ago now, which is crazy.
Hmm.
And they had a very forced way of trying to involve the community and have that land scene like you said. But then I
Yep.
think that something like while they kind of failed at that, it paved the way for like Valorant to come in and do it very correctly because now you see the VCT is something that is huge all around the world and you see these big events happening all around North America. But yeah, I we want to have more events in North America, but it's just not as profitable or reasonable to do that just in North America. Like you said, there's so much support in all of these other countries uh, that go beyond just playing the game, right? Like they are
Right.
there and they're involved in it from a from a nationwide standpoint, and you have the backing of these governments and whatnot. But
Yeah.
um, what now? I got to come up with another question, Will. Uh,
I'm here all day.
yeah, well, we won't keep it too long. Try to keep these around an hour, about the length of a Counter-Strike pug. Okay, I'm gonna pick your brain as an old head here.
Yeah.
This is actually just random out of the blue. Is GoldenEye N64 as good as people remember it, or is it fogged up by the retro goggles?
Oh
And do you
my.
have any experience putting on tournaments for GoldenEye 64?
All I'm going to say is the same people, the same people that reminisce about GoldenEye 64 reminisce about split screen Halo, right? Like Halo wasn't a thing until people were playing on their own CRTs. Which, by the way, I went to a tournament last year for Halo 2. It was kind of a revival of it, and all like everybody that I ever watched, everybody that I ever heard of was all in the room. Yeah, all played. But anyway, going back to like I think it's trumped up, man. I think that GoldenEye, like as much as we want to remember that it was a good game and people were playing it and
It's
stuff like
not.
that, it's not. It's like the only way you could play it was like 30 FPS. It was, split screen. You can see other people's screens and stuff like that. I think I
You had to use the
remember.
C buttons to look up and down.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's getting any different than what you remember. Like I like I imagine that if the 64 or at the very least if GoldenEye was being able to play it at the level that Halo was, if GoldenEye was invested in multiplayer wise, we're not even talking esports, just like multiplayer wise, the Halo was, we might be having a different conversation today about it, right? But just like no, I don't think so. I think it's just trash. I think like people that were I'm good at the man with the golden gun or whatever the one shot one kill
Yep, the Golden
mode was
Gun
in there.
mod.
Yeah, it's like whatever you were saying about that, bro. Whatever. Okay. Whatever, bro. You're good. Congratulations. You're good at it. Cool. That's yeah. No. Thank you.
Well, and I don't think you mentioned Halo there. Like, I don't think we would have had the same commitment from Bungie to the awesome multiplayer without a game like GoldenEye, though. Like, I really feel like Bungie was like, okay, GoldenEye just came out a few years ago. This is the big game that's bringing all these people together, and then we got to make sure that split screen home party environment for playing this video game is as fun. And yeah, I mean, where do you think a game like Halo fits into the into the esports scene?
I mean, it was just kind of like the first, the first esport, if you want to call it that. I mean, not necessarily, but the first visible esport, right?
Yeah,
Like for me, esports kind of began with I mean, like, well, I guess if you want to call it an esport, but like for me, like the arcade tournaments, like Starcade, I still have memories of the old cable shows for like Starcade and stuff like that, right? And that's something I want to recreate one day. But like as far as like a visible, recognizable, hey, everybody and their mother knows about this kind of deal, Halo was the thing. Halo was the game. And even if you played Halo for the story, kind of like watching porn, like the MLG, creating MLG, putting it on television was the thing that elevated it to that level, right? And so so like we part of our careers, and so like what Walshy is a really good friend of mine. He plays this other game called Killer Queen, and he's a very nice, personable person, as it were. But I would never have imagined. I would have never imagined like being in a room with all these people, and like now they're all part of the part of the crowd, part of the ecosystem. But like no, and also going back to GoldenEye for like 1 second, you have to understand something too. Access was a thing. Access, right? For me, I didn't have a 360. I didn't have an Xbox until I was able to afford one, right? So there's a very specific period of time where like I didn't have access to high speed internet. I didn't have access to any of the new consoles and stuff like that. I was still playing my Super Nintendo and stuff like that, and I thought I was cool, right? But for the folks that could afford it, could afford the ISBN the two phone line modems, as it were, to play Quake and all that stuff like that online, or as it were on high ping and everything like that is something that like it's been democratized right now. Like even if you're playing off your cell phone, right, you still have access to like high speed internet, and you can still play, you can still be a part of it, as it were. But like so I think Halo benefits from the fact that like not only did you put it on television, but then you kind of like you're kind of riding this wave of like access where somebody can look at the TV and go, hey, if I got an Xbox at home, I could play and be a professional, right? I like and these tournaments used to be like open and all this other stuff. So like it used to be this thing. It used to be a thing where people would travel and make a lot of money doing so. Same thing with like Counter-Strike and Quake and everything else. And so but like as far as like to me the first visible like household name, people know what this is even if they don't know what it is, esport, I would say Halo is the ticket. But everything else we're talking about, it's like existed long before that, but it kind of, and to your point, it kind of paved the way for Halo to exist. But Halo was the first game that was accessible. First game was like on console. That's what you're playing on console. You're not schluffing PC parts around. You're bringing a controller and you're playing on an Xbox and a TV at a tournament. That's how it worked.
well, yeah, I and listening to you talk about that too, like uh it is all these games, Quake, Counter-Strike, Half-Life, GoldenEye, all paved the way for a game like Halo, but then Halo in turn paved the way for them to be on a global scale and like a recognizable level for
Yep.
esports. I'm gonna take another turn here. You're a big Final Fantasy 14 player. Every time I see you on Discord, you are playing Final Fantasy 14. Who do you play, and do you miss Final Fantasy 11?
So, so I never got a chance to
Bit
play
of a
Final
loaded
Fantasy
question.
11. No, I know, I know. I'm taking it one step at a time. Yeah, like I again going back to Access. I didn't play Final Fantasy 11. As a matter of fact, like I was deathly afraid of using my credit cards online for a very long time. My first MMO was World of Warcraft, ironically enough. I had friends that played everything else though. They played Star Wars. They played
EverQuest.
Ultima Online. Yeah, EverQuest, like, but that to me was like rich people's food, right? Rich people like like playing those games, and I never had access to it until like again I was older enough and an adult and was able to play. And so Final Fantasy 14, funny enough, is just was more of a so I play, so my main is a paladin, but the really funny part was that like I have friends that have been playing the game for years, and they're like Ubermenches. They have like all this money and all the resources and stuff like that. So they're in maintenance mode right now, and they've played through all the content. When the new content came out, they were all whatever. But I played it years ago and got stuck because I didn't have anybody to raid with. Like there was like places that you need like four or five players, and I just couldn't figure it out. And like this is for me, going back to my WoW days and plugging with people and stuff like that until I, made friends and everything else. So like so now and so I was paying for it. I just forgot my password, and then the free trial came out, and then I replayed the free trial, and I was like, oh yeah, let me go try to find my get in my actual account. So now I am slow playing the content. A lot of the stuff I can solo, but like my friends my friends, I guess we were all part of this huge guild, and then we kind of, now it's just down to like the six of us, right, and then including myself. And so speaking of connection, we meet in person and play in person. So that's kind of what I hold off for. I don't like, I play through the content, but I want to play through the content with them. So it's kind of like my treat to like then hang out with them in person and play through some of the content that I haven't done yet. But otherwise, it's like, yeah, I'm kind of on maintenance mode. Yeah, I dive in, I play. If I'm, if I got a couple minutes, I'll do a dungeon or something along those lines. Like I play a lot of PvP too, which is I don't know
The
why. I don't know
PvP in
why.
FF14 is great.
I just I got hooked into it or whatever, and so I'll put the queue on in the background, and I'll go do something that's like, oh yeah, let me, and now I play that. So and it's fun, it's just like it's a fun little distraction. And then whenever the stuff or the seasons or all that stuff comes up, it's just like, that's when I know I'm in it. So it's like I plan time for that kind of stuff too. It's just like, all right, cool, I know the double gold saucer stuff is coming up in June. Like I'm gonna, I'm like, no, I'm gonna spend like time, like hours, like doing this because it's fun. And so yeah, but like no, I've enjoyed the game. I think I bought Final Fantasy 11. I think I have it. I could dive in, and then from what I hear, it's pretty friendly to newbies now because there's not that's populated. But yeah, no, like I remember when people were playing Final Fantasy 11 on like PS2, and then again, I didn't have an Xbox 360 until the end of life for Final Fantasy 11. But I remember like, man, I want to buy a 360 so bad because that's the best way to play Final Fantasy 11. And then it came out on PC, and I was like, oh, I don't have a fast enough PC, and so it's ironic now. So like, gaming for me now is very interesting because like, um, the games are ubiquitous. You have Steam. Like I have a Steam backlog that I am ashamed of, right? It's just like,
Don't
and
get me
like I keep
started.
saying myself, it's like I buy this game and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna play it, and then like, or whatever. Or there were a lot of games that like I never would have afforded as a kid, and then I go buy them thinking like, oh my god, this is like I saw screenshots of this. This is before like YouTube play, let's plays and things like that, right? But just like I saw screenshots of this, I thought it's really cool, and I sit down and play it. I was like, oh, wow, why would I play this game? This is not even me at all. And so it's just like it goes into bin of shame, and I just like remove it from my library. But regardless, like no, just like it's I find it funny that like it's very ubiquitous, and even some of the larger RPGs I would love to play. Like I would need to set time aside to do these things, right? And it's just and I don't want it to feel like a chore. I want Ever 14 to feel like a chore. And like if I play another game, it's just like, all right, cool. I got maybe 2 hours of time, to sit down and focus and play on this at the exclusion of everything else. And so, I have more fun doing other things and being more social. But hey, like who knows? I might break out Persona at a certain point and play through that.
Which Persona?
So I want to play. So
3,
I want
4,
to
or
play
5?
five.
Because 1 and 2
I,
apparently don't exist.
well, I have one and two. Ironically enough, I was just afraid to play them. But no, I want to play. So I have five, and then I have three reload, and I want to play. I want to play that because, again, I've always seen screenshots of it, and I've seen cosplays of it. I want to play. I want to play through both of them. But like five seems to be the most interesting to me as far as what I've seen play. And also like Persona 4 had a fighting game that was associated with it. So I'm familiar with some of the characters just from that alone. So like so maybe I'll get to that too. But I think yeah, 3, 4, and 5 are definitely on Steam/PC. I think I have all of them. I just never it's a time commitment. It's a huge time
They are
commitment.
massive time commitments. I mean, it's like a 10-hour tutorial in each of those games that
Yep.
like gives you a feel for the games. I think the Persona games are absolutely fantastic. Have I ever gotten past 15 hours in one? No, I haven't because
Right.
it's just that time commitment like you said. Okay, I'm gonna ask you our one last question here to close this out. We'll keep it 40 minutes or well, who knows what amount of time it is. This one a little open ended. It doesn't have to tie into esports. But you're a man with age, wisdom, knowledge. All you have. I talk about myself being 35 this year. Um, as kind of the first person that experienced console games growing up, but you were there for like the arcade wave in the 80s as well, and like that's where you got started. So you really are a demonstration of what it means to be an old man in gaming. And I'm not coming at you with
Get off
that's
my
not a
lawn.
shot at you at any means. You're literally you've gotten to see gaming develop over the last 40 years. What's the advice you would give to yourself at a young age or to any young person right now that's trying to get into the space?
Like the thing about it is like I I I I remember that there was a point in time or actually the better way to talk about this, there was a point in time where I gave up. I just completely cut off gaming. And it was kind of right around the time that I graduated from college. I tell people in a joking manner that I was competitive in 1.6, right? Because I joined my college team. I was trying to rank up. I was trying to play in the Cal leagues and everything. Problem was, like, I didn't want to go back home to my parents and tell them, like, hey, I'm not going to finish school because I want to be a gamer, right? Like that, like gaming was a source of shame. Gaming was a source of like, like you're doing this, you're a child, you're not an adult.
Right.
But I also had to remember,
Games are for
like,
kids.
yeah, right. And then I had to remember, like there's this guy, who's a fighting game player or legend at this point, James Chen, who said, like, look, this is the first generation that's grown up with video games. To your point, like this anybody that's shaming anybody now about video games, it's like, look, it's a career, like, and not you don't have to be good at the game, right? And that's the other thing I try to tell people too. Is like, you don't have to be the best, you don't have to be good, you don't even have to have a Twitch stream. You can have impact in this community
You can still
without even.
contribute without the skill level to dominate the top.
Right. And so, on the one side, the advice is just don't give up. You follow your passion. And I know it sounds cliche, but for me, it's like I wish that like I wish I had stuck with it a little bit longer, right? And even when the people that I meet now, it's like, man, these are my people. This is my community. Like I run into Ed Boon at tournaments, for Mortal Kombat, and I'm like, bro, like he doesn't understand that I memorized all the developer names out of the video game because those are the people that I wanted to be when I grew up, right? And it's like he's very nonchalant. It's like, yeah, no biggie, no big deal. And I'm like, do you understand? Like, do you understand the impact that you've had on
Right.
my life? Do you understand that you are one of the reasons why I'm here? Kind of deal. And now they're all my friends. These are all my coworkers and stuff like that, right? So it's just like I don't even like I still pinch myself. So the only other thing that's like blows my mind now is that I get to travel. That I get to go. I've gone literally around the world
All the
for
way to Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to London, I've been to Germany and Poland. You know, one day I'll make it to Japan. But my thing is like, I would have never imagined that at all as a kid. I wasn't. It wasn't even in my. This is what I'm going to be doing when I grow up, whatever, and this is what I'm going to be involved in, or whatever. And so, part of it's just not giving up, but just but like also it's just like, look, like I give this the same advice to everybody. It's like you don't have to be the best. Compete, have fun, enjoy the time while it lasts, as it were. But you don't have to be you don't have to be the best. You don't have to be hyper competitive. A lot of Call of Duty is targeted for people like me. Like there are games that are targeted for middle-aged men that just want to like crank out a round or two or whatever. That's the glut of their player base. And then the folks that are hyper competitive, they lag, it lags behind. It always does, right? But like I see a lot of folks like trying to burn themselves out, like trying to like play this content content race, content creation races as it were. When I'm like, look, there are stable economical full-time career jobs that you can do in a gaming industry if that's what you want to do, right? You don't have to be a gamer. You don't have to be this, that, and the other. And also like kind of like a final thing too is just like everyone can enjoy these games. Like these are not this is not at the exclusion of one group or another, right? Because I've also had to face some level of diversity and discrimination within the space, and I go, look, the games are for everybody, right? And you see the rise of women's leagues and stuff like that. And for the first time, like for me, for the first time ever, right? We're not dogging it. We're not like saying that they're weak. We're not whatever. It's like no, they're competing at the same level, if not higher, right, than the men are, right? Like and we should welcome that. We should welcome that because that's how my community survives. That's how our habit and our passion survives. Like if it's an old boys club and we're just creating these games for us and just shutting everyone else out, for whatever reason, it's just like we don't exist, right? And so again, when I see people dogging on arcade games, I go, listen, the reason why you have a cell phone in your hands is because
Right.
of gaming. That's the reason why you have a cell phone, right? There's no other reason. Because the telephone has been invented for a very long time. No one ever needed to make it portable. Like you had one at the house, and now all of a sudden you've got a cell phone. Why, right? You've got you got Wi-Fi. Why? Because gaming. Pretty much, and so those are just the two things. Just like embrace the community. Don't give up. Like don't listen to whoever these naysayers, whoever these people are. It's like we're here to stay. It is a respectable hobby. It is something worth pursuing. And for someone like myself, and like I said, if anybody ever has any questions for me about my involvement and how I did X, Y, and Z, is just whatever. It's like it's like I always try to welcome it. I try to be welcoming, just like to yourself. Like, hey, you want to do this interview? Like, yeah, sure. Because I feel like the story still needs to be told. I still think that there are a lot of people like me who want to be involved, but just like are afraid to do so for perceptions or reasons or whatever self-imposed limit they put on themselves. But I'm here to tell you, like, no, just go for it. Like, who cares, right? There's still a lot of room for there's still a lot of room for innovation. There's a lot of room for creativity, and it's here. Like I said, it's here to stay. It's going to happen eventually, and I believe you as well. Somebody's going to figure it out, and when they do, like I'll be the 80. Like I said, I'm going to be probably the 85, 90-year-old guy in the stands, watching legal, Faker, like just he doesn't even have to move his mouse. He's just going to have to like lie in a hospital bed, and his right arm is just clicking a
He'll
button, and
have the
someone else is
brain
moving the
link.
mouse. Yeah. Yeah, and like I'm gonna be the guy's like, yeah, remember, like back in my day, remember when Faker was like, had two hands and he was like, moving the mouse back and forth. Remember that game back in like 2016? Like I'm gonna be that guy, like as well. But no, but in all seriousness, like no, like I'm enjoying it. I'm gonna continue to enjoy it, and I encourage everyone else to do as well. So
Yeah, don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't be afraid to be yourself and commit to something that you really care about. I think that's brilliant. Well, hey, in spectacular Big D fashion, that's gonna do it for us here. I'm gonna cut us short. Thank you for joining me, man.
no problem. Thank you.
Okay, I'm turning off. Hang on one second.
Yeah.